Morning, family. How are you on this beautiful Sunday morning? Monday for some of us. Today I wanted to get on and talk to you guys about demystifying revision. Yes, everybody knows that we can revise. Everybody knows that we can do it. But let's demystify it. What exactly is it? How does it work? And how is it possible to make it so it doesn't seem so woo-woo, right? Like, let's unwoo-woo it. All right. So, when it comes to revision, let's talk about this. Let's really get down to the nitty-gritty, because many of you like the fact that you can erase things that have never occurred before. You can totally, you like this. However, on some occasions, when you're trying to ignore what has happened, you feel as if you're lying to yourself. This is not the proper use of revision. You see, not at all. See, let's talk about revision, and let's talk about a few important tips that actually count when it comes to revision. First and foremost, the most important one, your angle, your chosen angle of perception, what you are seeing in 3D is not the only point of perception. Case in point, and the analogy I'm going to use, since I write about these things all the time, but I realize what I write doesn't always get a video. So this is important, right? All right, so when it comes to revision, it is not what happened, but how you define it that counts. When it comes to revision, it is knowing that your point of perception is not the only point of perception. So, as an example, we're going to take the elephant. The elephant is what has happened. Our senses are blindfolded. This means that the point of perception that we are seeing is only one point of perception. This is the equivalent of being blindfolded, grabbing part of the elephant and deciding that it is the whole elephant. Do you see how that is convincingly real? Doesn't mean that it is. Meaning that if you were blindfolded and you grabbed the elephant leg, you would think that the elephant was like a big tree trunk, right? But if you grab its tail, you would think that the elephant is simply like a snake or something, you know? In both cases, you're avoiding or missing the enormity of the unfinished moment, right? Because you're choosing a single point of perception, which is the equivalent of what I'm saying. It's the equivalent of being blindfolded, grabbing a part of that elephant, and deciding that that is the elephant. Can I just tell you, first and foremost, it is not. Everything in 3D is an unfinished, partial creation of which you stand as its gatekeeper. You have never lost the ability to name things. You have never lost the ability to define things. You have never lost the ability to use hindsight to see why you are where you are. And most importantly, it is an unfinished moment. So if it is an unfinished moment, just because you are conditioned to choose to believe that things exist a certain kind of way, does not mean that it is the only existence. That is what we have to wrap our head around, because what we have done is localized. I call it focalized. We have focused and localized our attention. Focalized. I know it's not a word, but it is what we do, okay? Focused on a single point of perception and chosen that unfinished moment to be that, okay? So that's the equivalent of saying the elephant is like its tail, or the elephant is like its leg, or the elephant is like its ear. In either case, you have not touched on the whole beast, and you simply declared one point of perception, okay? In revision, what we are doing is expanding our perception. This cannot be done from an outside point of perception, okay? If I look outside and I define something as that's the way it is, that's the equivalent of me, again, holding the elephant with my blindfold on and saying, this is the only thing that is. You see how limited that is? So that is not done from the outside because our point of perception is too limited. Meaning that from within the 3D box, we are like the caterpillar who is unaware of its ability to fly above its own circumstances. And from within its circumstances, the circumstances appear to be bigger than us. Okay? This is a limited point of perception. This is the equivalent of having my blindfold on and deciding what the elephant is. That's the equivalent of that. Okay. In revision, what I do is climb the mother freaking stairs up into the only point of perception that counts. The one that can see, that takes the blindfold off, can climb all the way up, okay? Up within yourself, and is able to rise above your circumstances and is able to see the whole beast, okay? Is able to see a bigger picture that is not done from the outside, which is why if you only have an external focus, you are as blind as the bat, my dear, because you don't see with your eyes. There is enough science, okay? And my life is a living testimony. When my son's brain was damaged, the back of his head was damaged, and that is where he became blind because that part of his brain was not functioning. So I'm not saying anything that is not true of everyone. If we choose a single point of perception just because we are conditioned to think that's the only way that it is, does not mean that it is the only way that it is. This is why we climb into ourselves, to get a higher point of perception. We must climb within ourselves to become the butterfly, rise above our circumstances, and see what our circumstances are. This is a very different point of perception. Now, let's say that I climbed my inner self and got a bird's eye point of view, not the caterpillar's point of view from within my 3D experience. I've climbed within myself. I've used retrospect to see how far back this image was created. I can see how it's unfinished, and I can choose a different part of the animal to define it. Does that mean that I have changed the animal? No, I have not. I have changed my angle of perception. And this is how revision works. You move in mind where you want to see the angle that you want to see. There is a much bigger picture at hand, and you are choosing which part of your circumstance means whatever it means based on what you know. But if you do not rise above your circumstances, go within to define something, not the way that you're used to defining them, but choosing a better feeling point, then you are limited by what you know, right? But in revision, we are not limited by what we know at all, are we? No. Okay, so there is a much bigger picture at hand. So let's talk about a few things when it comes to revision. You can make anything. You are the only obstacle. You have never left the Garden of Eden and therefore have the ability to name things and have always had the ability to name things. You have never lost this ability. You are doing it unconsciously anyway, right? The difference is that you now can take off your blindfold, climb within yourself, and see the whole beast, and then decide what you wish to name it as, okay? I always use this example. I always say the same things because I say, if I say something enough ways, different ways, I go around in circles giving you every angle of perception until you understand what I'm saying, right? All right, so remember the caveman. Always remember the caveman, right? If you have a slight angle of perception and you judge the caveman by what he's doing in that very second in a darkened cave, you believe you are seeing a savage man. Nothing has changed in the circumstance. The only thing you are doing is localizing your point of attention and seeing what's in front of you in the exact same way that someone who's wearing a blindfold would say that the trunk of the elephant is the entire beast. It's no different. Yeah? Okay? All right. So you have this ability, and you've always had this ability to name things, to switch points of perception. Revision is not a difficult thing. It's not a woo-woo thing, okay? So let's go back to the caveman. Now your eyesight has been expanded. You're able to see beyond the cave, and you're able to see that there's a tiger in the cave, and he's trying to protect his family. Although the caveman itself didn't change, your angle of perception changed, because in the analogy of the cave being darkened and your eyes not having been adjusted, you weren't able to see beyond your first initial reaction, right? But in the second reaction, nothing changed. The elephant did not change. You notice this. In this case, the elephant is the caveman, right? The caveman itself did not change. Your angle of perception changed, and this is revision. This is revision. Your ability to climb within yourself and see the bigger picture. Yeah? Bigger picture. It's always been there. Nothing about the circumstance has to change itself. You are not trying to play with reality in the sense that you shouldn't argue with what comes in front of you. You should get to work on changing your perception. Perfect quote I shared today with Neville, perfect quote, was you don't go about changing the world because the world is a mirror. So breaking the mirror doesn't change the world. Changing the reflection outside of space and time, the way that we define things from a different point of perception, allows us to see a much bigger picture. See, the peace that transcends all understanding, your point of power, your bliss point, that which makes everything instantly out of thin air, is not discovered with an external point of view. It's discovered with an internal point of view, back to the original source, the creator of what's outside of it. You are the creator. I would like for you guys to think of yourselves as projectors, okay? Literally projectors. Now, I'm not saying anything that is woo-woo or out of the question. In fact, this is biblical. The lamp under your feet, you are the freaking lamp. You're the lamp, my darlings. See, what's so funny? You guys are carrying your warehouse of everything that ever is everything, ever, always with you in the invisible little photons of light that you guys see in space. You know, you guys can, I don't know if you guys can see it. I can see my aura right now, right? You guys, can you see the light that's expanding beyond me? Can you see this? There's no light on. It's just, okay? All right, you are carrying your universe with you in this way, okay, in light photons. These little light photons rearrange themselves and make themselves into new patterns so that you can see solidified matter. These little photons of light are arranged with your voice, your belief system, and all of it is coming from within, which means you can rearrange these little light photons to make anything, because you already are everything. And until you know this, you are limited by what you know, okay? So the people that don't know this, right, they will say things like, there are laws to this natural universe and you cannot defy them. How cute. Okay. Well, you get to live in a world like that. Meanwhile, those that know live in a totally different world with absolutely zero sense of limitation, because they have learned that they are rearranging their light photons into other things. And they have realized this ability. And once you've realized this ability, you are afraid of nothing. What are you afraid of? The light photons? Ooh, the boogeyman's gonna come get me. I'm sorry, I have to laugh at fear because it's really funny. When I try and describe fear, when I work with people who are afraid, I look at them and I'm like, do you realize how much bigger you are than your circumstances? You're afraid of little light photons that arrange themselves according to your will? You're afraid of that? Really? There is no boogeyman. None. Zero. Zilch. None. Okay? So, if you understand that the only thing you are doing is rearranging these little light particles, these tiny little light particles, can you guys see them? You see them? They're in the space between their little pixelated dots, okay? That's your boogeyman, okay? And that creates every single illusion, every body, every solid mass, okay? All right? Those little light photons are created by you. You rearrange them in any which way you like. Any which way you like. Okay? But there's a much bigger thing at hand here. And that is everything exists as an unformed moment. Your choosing point of perception is not the only one, just to recap. Okay? It's not the only one in existence. And you can choose from within yourself a new point of perception that allows it to look as if you have changed your circumstances. Okay? In reality, what we're doing is we're entering a new reality where the things are the way that we want them to be. Okay? The people, places, and things run on autopilot. You are changing your state. Your state then determines how everyone else behaves. So you can waste your time trying to turn the elephant leg into a tail all you want. You'll eventually do it, I suppose, right? But that's way too much effort. That's way too much effort. When all I gotta do is climb inside myself, find a new point of perception, accept that as real, and enter that. Okay? You guys don't realize this, and I really want to help you understand this. You quantum leap every second of your life. Every single choice you made, you've been quantum leaping your whole life. What you haven't realized is that your conditioned state of being determines how and where and when you jump. And if you can uncondition yourself, you'll be able to see further into your jumps. Have you been jumping your entire life? Damn Skippy, you have. Damn Skippy, you have. When I teach behind the veil, what I'm teaching is the fact that you have all this power outside of you. You control it, but it's not found in the outside world. It's found inside of you, where the creator of everything that you have experienced exists. There's an aspect of you that has never been hurt, you know? And many of us don't realize this. We don't realize this. So here's the truth, and I am one of these people. So I can speak from the experience. I hope I'm talking to the rest of you as well. Some of us chose some really ugly, ugly stuff. I was going to use the other word, but yeah, you know where I was going with that. To incarnate into. Yes? Okay. In my case, because I'm able to see the bigger picture, I see before I was ever born. I remember all my past lives. I remember every part of my existence. I remember being everything on earth. I remember all these things. I can't undo what I know now. Okay? I know. I'm done doing it, right? This is available to everybody. I'm not anyone special. This is just what the word says that we are. Okay? So if we can go back to our beginnings and our origins, we're able to understand how and why we chose the things that we did. In my particular case, I picked some of the ugliest things because the larger body that is myself in my universe that's acting as the gatekeeper, this is behind the veil and behind the design, that is casting a shadow onto the universe that is creating real problems in the world, or, you know, quote unquote real, right? The things that I experience in my reality, all right? Everyone has their point of perception that they are doing the exact same thing. This means that the horrors in the world are coming from you. I don't mean to say this in a bad way. I don't mean to say this in an accusatory way. I'm just stating facts. Your shadow casts what you see outside. It's facts. You're the light. You're the bigger shadow. You're the light and the shadow. You are all of these things. Yes? Okay. So, in my life, I chose things that were very difficult because they were prominent problems in the world. So the bigger aspect of myself, the one that knows what my actions did cause my own consequence of reactions in my world, chose to address some of the most ugliest things. Parents that molest you, abusive family, or anything. You can name any type of nightmare, okay? Anything that we've created that happens to be a problem in the world, you take ownership of that, because if it happened to you, then you are responsible for the creation in a much bigger picture outside. Remember, you're the source. So if I was molested, then I am also responsible for all the molestations out in the world. That is my shadow. Do you understand how big of a leap I'm making by accepting everything is me? Notice how well I do it in peace, okay? Now I stand as someone who not only overcame that nightmare, I'm showing other people how to do it as well. Am I changing what happened to me? No, but I'm finding the gold, I'm finding the value in my experience. And as such, I have peace over it. I don't dwell over the characters that played the role that they did. I'm not angry at my daddy. I'm not angry at my uncle. I'm not angry at anything. I'm not angry at the abusers, okay? They are simply characters in my much larger picture projection. Okay? And as such, although what happened to me did not change, how I view it did. And so now it is not a hang up for me. It is not a problem for me. I have removed it from my family genetic line. Will they experience this going forward? Hell the F no. Will my grandchildren experience this going forward? Hell the F no. Why? Because I fixed it within myself. I made peace within myself. A much bigger elephant was at stake here. I was no longer grabbing at the leg and thinking that I was the leg. A much bigger beast is at stake, okay? And as such, that type of peace allows you to move on from what you've known and allows you to accept what is. We're not bypassing reality. We're not trying to make it something it's not. We're not trying to turn the elephant into a snake. Do you see the difference? Okay? Your ability to change your reality is coming from your ability to convince yourself. Okay? Earlier today, in a totally another group, someone asked the question, how do I know if my imaginal act is enough? Like, how do I know I did it right? All right? And I want to address that. I definitely want to address that before I leave you guys for the Sunday morning service. All right? All right. So how do you know whether you created something, you did enough, and you did it right? The answer is, if it felt real to you, if it felt as real as it's going to get, meaning it elicited an emotional response from your body, as far as I'm concerned, you have prayed correctly and you are able to drop it and let it go and expect it in your Amazon order universal catalog. Expect it to arrive. It must arrive. It is so. Okay? Here are a few things that will stop that package from arriving. Remember I said time and space comes from you? Right? You created the gap? All right. So here are a few things that stop that package from arriving. Doubt that what you did, that you did it correctly. Taking stock and saying that your point of perception is the only point of perception, therefore it's not there. Going, where is my creation? It should be here already. You see, in all of these cases, in all of these examples, what am I doing except declaring what's not there and affirming what is not there? Whether I realize I'm consciously doing that or not, Gonna make a difference. I'm still affirming what is not there. So what does your blind father do with that information? Keep it not there. All right? So the answer is, you are the only one you convince, and to properly pray for anything, make it feel real in your body, and then you can drop it. That's the moment you can say it is done, or thank you, Father, or thank you, God, or thank you, me, whatever, however however you want to define this energy inside of you that can make anything in the world it wants. All right? That's how you know you've done it effectively. Secondly, when it comes to revision, it's the exact same way. When it comes to revision, if I'm trying to convince myself of something else, it must feel real to me. Because if I feel like I'm lying to myself, okay, it will not work. Case in point, I'm going to take a most extreme example. Thank you, Naomi, for always giving me such extreme examples. If I had been raped or molested as a child, to try and tell myself that I wasn't would be too much of a stretch. I remember what I know. I cannot let that go. There is no point in trying to lie to myself and convince myself otherwise unless I can do that. If I can convince myself that nothing like this happened, then I can move into the reality where it didn't happen, right? But most people cannot lie to themselves this way. Either way, you're lying. You're lying to make an illusion. So either way, you're lying. I'm just not saying the lie is considered good or bad in this way. You're pretending, you're imagining, and then it creates outside, right? All right. So if either way, if you could convince yourself that that was true, then more power to you. You will enter that reality, no problem. But for those of us who cannot forget, okay, don't try to remake the wheel. The elephant is still the elephant, okay? Choose a different point of perception within the elephant, even if it means you don't have to revisit the memory, but if it means looking back and saying in hindsight, I wouldn't be who I am today if none of those things happened to me. I wouldn't be prepared for the ugliest stuff that can come at me. You see, you have to develop a fearless nature. So for me, that was developed instantly because I was dealing with beasts when I was a freaking 5-year-old, 2-year-old, an infant. Okay? But I made the beasts my servants. You know? I'm smiling because I'm the one that went into hell and came back knowing I was the boss. Okay? Everybody must do this. Everybody must do this, you know? If you're going to discover that you're God, you might as well be able to go into hell and be like, I'm still the boss. You know? This can't be faked. You know it because you know it. That unfuckwithable, all right, should be part of your consonants all the time. Like, it just should be, right? So, for those of us who cannot convince ourselves, notice how I didn't change what happened. I'm choosing a different point of perception. My point of perception is on a much grander scale. I chose these things before birth to clean up the ugly things in my universe. I am aware that they are there. I'm also aware that I have the power to remove them. When I remove them from my source projector, I will remove them from the world. This will take time, and only should I deal with what comes in front of me, because the universe is going to bring me what I need to discover who I am. It's set up this way. Okay? So this is my reason for addressing revision this way. If you feel as if you are lying to yourself, then you are doing it incorrectly. Okay? If you can convince yourself of what is, then you're doing it right, and you can stretch it as far as you want to go. We have the ability to grow back our limbs. Okay? You guys don't know this, but we are just like every creature in nature. Like the lizard that can grow back its tail, we can grow back our limbs. However, okay, even though I know we can do this, I do not feel confident in my ability to do it because I don't know how yet, all right? So I'm not going to go cut off my limb to prove a point, okay? I know my limitation in that sense. Do you understand what I'm trying to say? Meaning, Tackle the things that you can tackle until you develop the type of faith that is willing to cut off the limb to prove a point, which is what Jesus did. Jesus said, go ahead and crucify me. Do your worst, and I will still come out on top. Okay? We are trying to develop that type of Jesus faith. While we're doing that type of Jesus faith, understand that you as the gatekeeper are the only obstacle, and you alone are the only one that needs convincing. The rest of the world must appear as you are, because you are the source reflection. Until you know this, you will not understand the power of the kingdom of God within you, and you will feel helpless. And this caterpillar stage is a perfectly normal state, because we must all understand what it means to encase the eternal mind, okay, in order to be able to free ourselves from it. In true enlightenment, we realize that we've never been encased in anything. We've always been free, that everything is always as we are, and that nothing outside of us exists any other way other than the way we've declared it to be. This gives us a personalized view. Does that mean that there are other points of view? Sure, there are. It's the analogy of the 6 and the 9. You know, if I stand in front of the 6 this way, it is definitely a 6. I'm looking at a 6. It's a 6. It's a 6 from this angle. It's a 6. You know, I'm looking at it. It's most definitely a 6, right? But if I move to the other side of that 6 and I look at it, I'm looking at a 9. And it is most definitely a 9. Has the number itself changed? No. Your point of perception has. And that's what revision is. Revision is the ability to see beyond your single point of focal and localized attention into a much bigger picture, and choosing a different angle and then claiming that's what is. That ability is found within you and not outside of you. I'm repeating myself for the last time. Outside of you is a single point of perception. It's very limited to your state of beingness that creates the first dimension, second, and then third. So it all layers about all around you, but you are that point of perception. You are limited by that. Is there more? Yes, there's always more. Just like the caveman itself didn't change, you know? Or just like your ability to take your blindfold off and see that the elephant is way bigger than just its tail, or it's way bigger than its leg. Knowing that you can choose that demystifies revision for you. You've always had these abilities. These are all, you know, I use the Bible for one thing and one thing only. It's my manifestation guide. It's my guide to operating my universe of light that I make from within myself and that I use thought to make matter out of. So if I use thought to make matter, I can use it to make money. I can use it to make my SP. I can use it to make whatever the hell I want, because all of these things exist within me, not out there. And so as such, I'm not looking outside for things to get better, because I'm the only reason things are not better. I'm choosing to focalize, right? Focus on a little point of perception, even though I'm thinking it's the only one that exists. Nothing can be farther from the truth. All sorts of perceptions exist, and your choice to define things determines what you experience at all times. I hope this demystifies revision for you. I hope you understand it slightly different. I hope this helps, because this is, you know, this is a lifestyle, you guys. This is a lifestyle. It's not it's not something that you read a book once and think you get it. No, this is a way of living that frees you from the 3D boxes that you were making automatically anyway for experience. What I'm doing is helping you understand what it's like to live behind the veil, not in the veil. So you and only you can decide what things mean. You and only you can decide to focalize, but you determine the quality of what it is that you're seeing. You and you alone. Okay? Also know that your experiences that come to you are self-chosen by you. are always for you, not against you. And in the moment, you may not understand, but if you were to climb inside yourself, climb up that mountain, and gain a greater understanding of what is before you, you would be able to take the limitation out. The thing about God's ideas is they're whole. They're always whole. This means the debt and the payment of the debt exist simultaneously together. Just because we are in a point of perception where the debt is all that we can see does not mean that the point of perception where the debt is already paid doesn't exist. We are the one in the middle of these 2 points, okay? And it is our job to transcend this point of perception in 3D to this point of perception in 3D, using our body as the veil and the gatekeeper, okay? Now, we can remain looking at a debt and calling it a debt, or we can remember, use our words to transcend the middle veil and get to the other side by simply saying God's ideas are whole. There are no debts in heaven. Everything is paid, okay? As you start declaring this, your little light photons then fall apart. You know, like a butterfly, you know, the caterpillar must disintegrate, okay? And then become something else. They rearrange themselves, okay? And then as you declare that, and as you believe that with every fiber of your being, you suddenly enter a world where your debt was paid. It was paid. It could have always been paid, but you were deciding where you were going to be in the point of perception. Are you going to be here, where the debt exists, or are you going to remember that God's ideas are whole, so the debt doesn't have to exist? It can be paid for magically. Yesterday in class, we had someone who said he needed $15,000 for a business. He just had an expense, and he didn't know where the money was coming from. And all he did was focus on the feelings of the debt being paid, and literally a family member came out of the blue and paid it down to zero. The how is not up to you. It will appear in a way that is most acceptable to you, so that it will look as if it was going to happen anyway. That is by design, so that this world doesn't seem so woo-woo, okay? And so that you can discover your ability to transcend from point A to point B, because you don't exist in either. You are simply choosing to localize your point of attention here, when you could have been facing here within yourself and declaring that instead, okay? I wish I had pictures to draw all this stuff, because it's so simple. Like I see in 3D images. My aura is a magenta aura. My magenta aura sees in 3D images. So when you all speak and tell me your stories, I see the 3D movie. That's the way my eyes work. So I wish, in using my hands to point out the invisible, that I could show you what I mean exactly, but I'm doing my best to convey it, because it's that simple. It's that simple. You guys are standing in the middle of infinite possibilities. I'm just giving you the example of an easy one, right? Of infinite possibilities. And the how the debt gets paid isn't up to you. It's knowing that it was already paid that is. Okay? That determines how you revise this and get to that. So there's lots of ways to revise, but if you understand that, if you understand you're the gatekeeper, if you understand that you're the only one you're trying to convince, once you convince yourself, the 3D world aligns. You don't have to work out there. You do have to work in here. I hope that demystifies revision. I hope this helps. I hope you guys can take value from this, especially for those of you who are trying really hard to forget some really nasty things and can't, and so you can't detach from it, okay? If that's the case, then use your angle of perception and move it. Whether you are going to use hindsight to see its value, or whether you can't value it yet, so you're going to reserve judgment and you're going to wait for it to pass, all of these actions are acceptable. They're perfectly acceptable ways of fixing what you are seeing. They're perfectly acceptable ways, okay? But just know that just because you see one thing doesn't mean that there aren't a billion other possibilities in the field, okay? What you are learning to do is master the way that you think to make the world outside in your image. Okay, it's already made that way. You're trying to discover and maybe correct or fix things that you would have done in ignorance. Because at the end of the day, the only thing that ever happens to us when it seems unfair is that we're on the receiving end of things that we've thought, said, or did to the illusion of another in an act against ourselves. So when these situations happen, that's why. We're on the receiving end of our own actions. So we can perpetuate the cycle and stay localized here and remain victim, or we can accept our role as creator of it, discover who we are by repurposing the old experience into a totally new experience, and one that you can learn from, and discover who you are in the process. That's the actual purpose of all hardships. They're not actually hardships when you understand how this all works. It's a good place to exist in. Okay? I hope that helps. And I'm really thankful that you guys were with me. I have in 15 minutes to meet with my Neville group, my mastermind, so I gotta go. But from my heart to yours, happy Sunday, and hope this helps. I really do. You know, at the end of the day, that's my goal. I want to make manifestation as easy as it's always been, because it's not difficult at all. It's simple. It's so easy a 5-year-old can do it. So let's keep it simple, yes? Love you guys.